Right, hello, welcome back to the channel. The motorbike, I was coming up here yesterday, I got a puncture on it, first puncture I've had. Not very happy about that, but what can I do? So I haven't got the bike, so I've got my car. Hopefully that'll be going this week, that car. I should get the bike back Monday or Tuesday, all being well. So today I brought you to a cemetery. The reason being is because I found out something a little bit interesting about this one in particular. This is Killingbeck in Leeds. And what I found out is there was a survivor of the Titanic buried here. Of all people, who knew? So it's amazing and interesting what you can find in the history around where you are. So the person's grave we're going to go see, it's quite interesting. He served on the Olympic to start with, and then he went on board the Titanic. We all know what happened to that ship. He was a mess steward, which basically is looking after the officers on board your ship, and cleaning, serving food, all that kind of thing for the officers' mess and such places as that. Now, at the time of the sinking, he was in bed, allegedly, fast asleep. The abrupt stop and the stop of the engines awoke him, he roused, and he was told that, don't worry about it, go back to sleep. So he did. Luckily, somebody went back for him. From reading about him, he was slapped across the face. He went up on deck, and I think by this point, I get the impression from what I've read, is that the ship was pretty much on its way out after this, on its way down. He was awoke by a slap around the face, got up on deck, and he was never called to the board of inquiry, which there weren't really that many survivors, so he should have been really, but who knows, it's all done and dusted now. So while he was on board deck, the lifeboat he got on was collapsible lifeboat D. B, Bravo. Lifeboat Bravo. Now if you've seen the film, oh, which one is it? A Night to Remember. And also Cameron's Titanic, it's the last boat to leave the ship. It's the one that's upside down, and he gets on there, and that's the one that the light owler is on, the officer light owler, the senior surviving crew member, and it's what they're stood up on. Kenneth Moore plays him in A Night to Remember. So he survives, he gets on board that, and then he is transferred after a few hours to lifeboat 12, I believe. Wet, cold, and a lady called Lillian Bentham gave him her coat, and they both survived because they were on that. Now, one of the boats does go back to look for survivors. Now, that boat wasn't full, but some of those survivors were transferred into lifeboat 12 before it went back. And then the following morning, they were rescued by the Carpathia. And then we all know what happens from there. Now this fella that we're going to go see his grave at and pay our respects, he made his way back to England after this. He was married. He got married in a city called Hull over on the east coast of East Yorkshire, and a few years later World War I broke out and he was called up to fight World War I. He joined an artillery regiment and they went to Europe. He survived that as well. He survived that completely. When he came back, they settled down in the city where we are now, which is Leeds, Yorkshire, and he lived a relatively uneventful life, happy family life, I'm hoping, and yeah, he lived to the ripe old age of 74. He had children, grandchildren, he's got relatives alive today, and he is buried here. Now, for somebody who survived the Titanic wreck, survived World War I, and then went on to live a long, happy life, it's worth noting he never went back to sea, which you can't blame him really. Who would want to after something like that? So yeah, he lived the rest of his life here in Leeds, and his grave is here. What's sad about it is that he is in what is called a guinea grave. A lot of people won't know what that is. That is basically a pauper's grave, where you would be put in a mass grave. There would be open pits, and that they would be filled in once there was enough people to fill the grave. There's lots of them in the UK, and there's a lot here in this. All these around me, what you can see there, these older headstones, the white ones are military ones. All these, and these that I'm in here, are all guinea graves. So we are now stood at William Fitzpatrick. He's the steward, he's the chap that survived the Titanic, survived World War I, and went on to have children and grandchildren, and relatives are alive today. Let's have a look at where he is. He is the third name up. It is quite a big cemetery, as this one. It was opened in 1895, 5 years after Cecil's birthday. Interestingly, he was born in April, and the Titanic sank 14 days before his birthday. What a birthday that must have been, eh? So it clearly affected him from not wanting to go back to sea ever again, and just ended up being a land lover, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I don't think I'd fancy going back on a boat if or a ship if it had sunk. It's a very peaceful place to be, and it's not the most beautiful or scenic of cemeteries, but there are some interesting headstones, and some that are well cared for and well looked after that are here, and I hope he's resting in peace. I'll put some little photographs on from the internet of the Titanic and the lifeboats that he was in. I hope you found it interesting. If so, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, because there's more coming. There's definitely more famous people in this cemetery. We might come back and cover those, however, but for now, hit like, subscribe and share.